Surveillance footage from the scene gives us a glimpse into how the situation unfolded. We want to warn our viewers, some of the video you're about to see may be disturbing. Here's CNN's Yahya Abu Ghazala.
A 26-year-old Colombian man, Joan Sebastian Guerrero, was shot and killed in an ICE-involved shooting Monday morning in Maine. For now, official information is scarce, but a CNN review of photos and videos of the scene offers new insight into the timeline of the deadly incident. It's the second fatal shooting involving ICE agents within a week, coming just days after a Mexican man was killed in Houston. The latest shooting happened at this intersection in the city of Biddeford. Guerrero was driving this white Kia. There's still a lot that's unclear about what led to the shooting, but here's what we do know. At 7:17 a.m., a doorbell camera from a nearby home captured the sound of gunshots. You can hear 5 shots fired in just over a second in the distance.
Is that a car?
In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security said that ICE was conducting targeted surveillance of an illegal alien. Then it says an illegal alien departed the residence in a vehicle. Notably, they don't specify whether that's the same person they were targeting. DHS says that the vehicle attempted to flee the scene, and fearing for public safety, an officer discharged his weapon. The statement did not explain why the ICE officer thought the driver was a threat. U.S. Senator Angus King said DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin told him the man was not the target of the operation. Surveillance video, which appears to have been captured seconds after the shots were fired, shows Guerrero's car entering the intersection and then slowly moving in circles. In another angle, you can see 2 federal agents standing outside the car, as one of them has his hand on the driver's side door, apparently trying to bring it to a stop. Behind the circling car are at least 2 federal law enforcement vehicles blocking the road with their lights flashing, indicating where the shooting may have started. The car keeps spinning for over a minute, making at least 4.5 revolutions. Then there's a cut in the video. When it resumes, you can see agents use one of their vehicles to stop Guerrero's car. We can see in this photo that it was pinned by an unmarked federal law enforcement vehicle. You can also see 4 bullet holes in the car's windshield on the driver's side. 2 federal agents are then recorded outside the car. One of them pulls Guerrero onto the street. He appears limp and his head hits the ground. Then officers appear to handcuff him. In other footage, one of the agents can be seen wearing a vest that indicates he's an ICE agent. The other, a Border Patrol agent. 3 other agents, all wearing ICE vests, could also be seen around the car. Then, at 7:21 a.m., local police arrive on the scene as one ICE agent kneels over Guerrero. By 7:23 a.m., about 6 minutes after the shots were fired, both local and federal officers are seen providing medical care to him.
President Trump making a post that just happened in the last hour. He says, "We cannot give up one of ICE's most important and effective crime fighting tools, the traffic stop." Now, that's significant because it comes after a very different announcement from the border czar last night, who was on Fox. Tom Homan had said the agency would have a short pause on most traffic stops after one of their officers fatally shot a Colombian man in Maine on Monday. It was the second fatal shooting involving ICE agents within a week, coming just days after a Mexican man was killed in Houston. Now, President Trump's border czar is describing the halt in traffic stops not as a complete stop to traffic stops, but as he put it, short pause. In both shootings, none of the agents involved wore body cameras, and officials are now saying that ICE does plan to equip each arrest team with an agent wearing a body camera. Here's what here's what border czar Tom Homan said about the slow rollout of body cameras.
As soon as the trainer's done, the trainers will get the cameras and they'll deploy as quick as possible.
Don't you see that to be extremely urgent, given right now?
It is urgent.
We do not have
They're moving as quick as they possible. As soon as they had funding, they bought them.
Witnesses.
As soon as they had funding, they bought them. If Democrats want to shut down the government, it would have been a lot quicker.
All right, CNN's Maria Santana live in Biddeford, Maine, where there is really growing anger after the death of the 26-year-old Colombian father. Maria, what are you hearing there and what are you learning this morning?
Yeah, hi, Sarah. Good morning. Well, one of the biggest questions here in Biddeford remains exactly the same. What happened in the seconds before an ICE agent opened fire, killing 26-year-old Joan Sebastián Durán Guerrero from Colombia? And the community here is still really grappling with that. They have been trying to demand answers. They have been trying to support this family. We are here in this park, very close by to where Durán Guerrero lived. There have been protests here the last several nights, and as you can see behind me, the community has left notes in solidarity with his family, asking for ICE to be abolished, to get out of their communities, because Sarah, more than 2 days later, there are still very few answers and details from the Department of Homeland Security over what led to this incident. And a big part of the reason that that's the case is because the agents were not wearing body cameras, and the video from surveillance, from witnesses that have been released, they really don't show those moments right before Durán Guerrero was shot. DHS has so far provided, very few details about why the agent that discharged his weapon felt that he was in danger and why he believed that deadly force was necessary. What they have confirmed is that Durán Guerrero was not the person that they were looking for, that he walked out of this apartment building that they were surveilling, waiting for another person who had a final order of deportation. They tried to stop his vehicle, and they said that when Guerrero tried to flee, that in fear for the safety of the public, the agent began shooting.
I'm also joined tonight by CNN's senior law enforcement analyst, the former deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, and my colleague Priscilla Alvarez. And Priscilla, you've been doing a ton of great reporting on this. I mean, for the administration to come out and change, even temporarily, as Tom Homan was putting it, how they are conducting this is notable.
On two fronts, actually. So there is the pause on vehicle stops. That is something that the administration has been leaning on more and more frequently to ramp up their immigration arrests and hover around those 2,000 arrests a day that the White House has wanted and the administration has been pushing for. And now they are saying that they are going to pause that as they assess and review what happened in these incidents, both in Texas and in Maine. And I should note that there is an exception here for those with criminal warrants, but even in those cases, they want ICE to work with their partners. But on the other change, I'm also learning that an arrest team that is put together by ICE for them to go out and conduct an arrest, they now are requiring or plan to require at least one agent to have a body camera on their person while they're distributing these cameras to the entire field. That is something that is ongoing, as you just mentioned there, and as the White House border czar was talking about. So in the span of only a few hours on the heels of both of these fatal shootings, we are seeing two notable changes, even if they are temporary, which is a departure from the way the department has postured itself before. We saw the doubling down in Minneapolis with then Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Secretary Markwayne Mullin appears to be taking a different approach here. And I think part of that, Caitlin, is I have been told that there have been concerns within the department that these shootings are going to erode public trust in a way that he had been trying to rebuild while carrying out this immigration crackdown since Minneapolis. So there's a lot at play here. There are concerns within the department about what has unfolded here, and they are taking a moment to assess what's going on, even if it's temporary. And of course, that also has an impact on the administration's agenda.
Yeah. What other questions do you have, Andrew, about this investigation itself beyond just, what we could learn from a body camera that we don't have?
I have a lot of questions. I think one of them, and this is a frequent question of mine, is where is the FBI in this work? And I say that not just for the killing of Mr. Guerrero yesterday, but as we look back over these incidents, at least over this year, you see a pattern of not only not living up to their responsibility of conducting what we call color of law offense investigations or civil rights investigations, but actually going in the other direction. So certainly in the case of Renee Good, in the case of Alex Preddy, investigations were opened right away to investigate assaults on law enforcement officers, just as was done in the case in Houston last week. We know that the FBI comes in and does a thorough crime scene evaluation and then keeps that evidence, refuses to share it with local authorities, hampering district attorneys and state's attorneys from doing the investigations of a killing on their own streets. The evidence that they seized from the crime scene involving Renee Good which they refused to turn over. The state of Minnesota had to sue them for it, and they finally turned it over today or yesterday, within the last 24 hours. So rather than being a force of oversight and fair, complete investigations, the FBI, under its current leadership, has taken the side of facilitating ICE's ability to basically walk away from these instances scot-free.
Do we know anything else about the officers, the agents who were involved in what happened in Maine?
We're still gathering details on who they were, not only in Maine, but also in Texas. Generally speaking, the standard protocol is that these agents would go on administrative leave for a period of time as these investigations are ongoing. We have seen, to your point, that there have been cases and criminal charges brought against agents. This happened in Minneapolis, given their the way they told the events of an arrest with a Venezuelan man. So we'll see what comes out of this. Tom Homan has also talked about investigations brought against agents when they did not conduct themselves well. But one of the questions that is also unanswered is, what was their training? And not only that, but when did they join ICE? Are these veteran ICE agents? Are they newer ICE agents that were part of that massive recruiting push last year? So those questions remain unanswered. The department has not shared who they are, but certainly we're trying to figure that out as these investigations happen.
I think it's important to note that that case in Minnesota where they brought criminal charges against the agents, that happened because the case that they brought against the immigrants fell apart under questioning. They realized that the agent they were working with had actually lied about how the shooting took place, actually fired on these immigrants through the front door of their house. Law enforcement is not a business. You send a force out on the street every day to conduct arrests, and every one of those operations carries with it the threat of violence and possible death. You reduce your odds of having those sort of horrible results by hiring the right people, by subjecting them to a standardized training that protects them from engaging in the sort of activity that might create those risks, and from supervising them closely. None of that is being done right now from the results that we see on the streets involving ICE agents, and at the same time they're under intense pressure to reach these ridiculous numbers of 2,000 arrests a day. That is a combination of factors that leads directly to what we're seeing, and that is innocent people getting hurt and killed.
Well, I mean, that's really one of the most stunning parts of this is the person that they were going after in both of these situations was not, or the person who was killed was not the target here. It wasn't like this was someone who was running away from them because they were actually the target. They were here legally, we believe, at least in Maine.
Or not even running away. These are, when ICE goes out to conduct these operations, they call them targeted operations. They have an idea of who they are going to seek. Before, they used to fill out worksheets that actually laid out, this is the target we are going out for today. They did away with those worksheets last year. So they're going out, and what they're finding, for example, in Houston, is when they ran the plates, that the individual that they were pursuing was undocumented, and that made them fair game. So there was an acknowledgement, this is not the target. We don't believe this is a target based off who is the registered owner of this van, but we are going to arrest them anyways, because it all comes back to numbers and this idea of collaterals, that even if you're going to arrest a target, but there is another undocumented immigrant in the vicinity, or you come across them, they too can be arrested. And that is how ICE has been operating. It's not the first time they've operated that way, but certainly we can't stress enough how much pressure they're under to really ramp up these arrests so that the administration can reach its historic goals.
Priscilla Alvarez, great reporting. Andrew McCabe, thank you for being here.